I want to thank you all for joining us tonight for this Facebook live streaming for Malayalis for Black Lives Matter. We're very grateful tonight to be joined by lovely Varughese, who joins us from Chicago. Her son Praveen was 19 years old and attending school in Southern Illinois University, a criminal justice major who was killed. And she wants to share a little bit about his story and his continuous fight for justice. Lovely Auntie, thank you very much for finding the time to share with our community in particular in this moment where everyone is trying to support and do their part in this country. I want to start off first. Can you just tell us a little bit about Praveen and what he was
I would need the whole day.
like?
He's our only son. We have two girls, and he's in the middle. From childhood, he had an ability to make everyone laugh.
Mhm.
He would crack jokes like no other. Anytime you are around him, you will only hear everyone laugh. He just make up stories. He would give everyone a nickname, and he danced. He was in the choir in church. He was a great singer. He was in the cross country. He was in the DECA club in school. The teachers loved him. He had so many friends. The funny thing was everyone thought that that person is his best friend. So he had an ability to make everyone feel that they are the most important person in their life. And then when he decided to go into college, like all the Malayalis, we wanted him to go into medical field, but he chose criminal justice. So we had such a hard time, for me especially, to believe that he chose criminal justice. That's what he wanted, and him and his cousin went to Southern Illinois University. So they were roommates there, and he was there a little over an year, but he made so many friends there. And he was such a great kid. He loved everyone. He just did not want anybody to be unhappy. Always laughing. I always look for a picture where he's not smiling, but he's so happy all the time.
What happened, Auntie, the night that he died?
The night he died, he used to call us every night from college, and he would come home every other weekend. It's 350 miles away. He would either take the train and surprise us, come here and call one of his friends and get a ride from the railway station and come and surprise us. Or after he got the car, he used to drive down here. And the night he went missing, him and his cousin, he called us at 9 o'clock at night. It was a Wednesday night. He called us, and then they decided to go to this party, somebody's birthday party. He wasn't going to go because he had a test the next day, but all his friends were going, so he went. Him and his cousin and few other friends. The other one was his roommate, and they all went. And my nephew and the other boy was working, so they parked their car. They all went in one car. They parked their car in the place where my nephew works, and they all walked to this party. And my nephew and the other boy, they went back early because they had to work. And Praveen was walking back to that place. And a guy by name Gage Bethune, who was not a college student, he came from somewhere 40 miles away from there. He was on a different party on the same street. Praveen was walking, and now we know after the trial and everything that he got him for money. He robbed him for $25, beat him up, and he took him away. And then the next day, Praveen did not show up in the class. So his friend texted my nephew. They started searching before they even told us. They thought he probably stayed with a friend or so. But by night, they got so worried. It was very unusual for him not to answer the phone. So they called the security. They came and opened his door, and he wasn't there. So they reported him missing, and we get the phone call Thursday night from the police. And when he called, the police did not tell me that he was missing or anything. He just asked me if Praveen is home. And when I heard it's police, your heart just, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So then he was ready to hang up, and I said, "Is everything okay, sir?" And that's when he said his cousin reported him missing. So we jumped into the car, we drove. As soon as I heard that, I started calling Praveen's phone. When he didn't answer, I knew something happened, because with Praveen, you don't have to call too many times. If he doesn't answer the one time, if I just leave like, "Praveen, where are you?" We call him Wave, we used to call him Wawa. So I'm like, "Wave, Evdada." And then he calls me right back. So I just knew something really happened, because, he knew how worried we were. So something happened. I just knew it immediately. So we drove down there. We went to the place where my son Praveen was living, and his cousin was there. My oldest daughter at that time, she was a university student at St. Louis, and her friends brought her over there. So it was 3:00 in the morning by the time we got there. We went to the police station, and they said, "We got the report, but you have to wait till the morning till the detective shows up." So we took a hotel, we just could not sleep. And we went, like, instead of 7, we went there at 6. And then they started talking to us. They asked us if Praveen had a tendency of running away. That's all I can understand. They didn't know him. Yeah. So we gave them all the information, and they came into his townhouse, and they opened the room. And I said, "Can I see the room?" And they said, "No, you cannot get in." I said, "I just want to see his room." And they opened the room, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's a typical Praveen room, So they said, "We're just going to," they didn't have any clue. They had no idea what happened. So they started looking into his bank account. They took his computer, they locked the door again, and they said they will have the helicopter. So maybe an hour or so later, we heard the helicopter just above the college. They just took a few rounds, and that was the end of that. And by next day, from Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit area, maybe more than 200, 250 Malayalis showed up. Wow. Searching for Praveen. So they all went to the police station asking how can they help. They said they didn't need any help. So they started doing their own, So by then, a Facebook page was created for finding Praveen, and people were going all around searching. We just were briefed morning and evening. Only thing we heard was no lead. So this was Friday by then already, and Saturday they said, "We still don't have a lead, but Sunday we will not have any search. We are short of staff." Wow. Yeah. So now looking back, it hurts me. At that time we were so naive, and we were in such a shock. And now I'm like, one whole day they wasted not even looking for my son. And the college did not send a mass email. My coworker's son went to that same college. He didn't even know Praveen was missing. It was in like 10 kids missing from that college at that time. So they did not even really care, So Sunday, some of the media showed up there, asked us for an interview. And we gave a plea to the public. And by then we had put a $15,000 reward money. So now we know that TV news in the evening, Gage Bethune is the person that killed my son. Him and his cousin were watching TV, and they saw the news. And after the TV news, his cousin called the police station for the reward money and told on his cousin.
Wow. Incredible.
So incredible. But the police is not telling all this. We had no idea all this was happening. So then the next morning, we have so many Malayali people here. His name is Pravin Varughese. He had connections with Lieutenant Governor at that time, Sheila Simon. So the police told us they were ending the search. Sunday, they said, Sunday they did not do anything. And by Monday, they said they had no lead, so they were ending the search. And I said, I'm willing to accept the worst, but you have to find my son. I cannot live my life wondering where my son went, So Sheila Simon, the lieutenant governor at that time, she had called the Carbondale Police Department and she made a demand that they have to continue the search. That was the only reason they continued the search. So that evening, Monday evening, is when they are getting all this information about this person giving the information who picked up Praveen. So then he's the one, he said his cousin Gage picked up Praveen and they were driving. He didn't know what it was. So, there were so many, 10 different stories there. So he said there was a state trooper behind Gage's car. So then the police looked for the state trooper's report. There was no report made. But then they searched and they found who the state trooper was. And they went and got the state trooper. The state trooper remembered the incident, but he did not make a report at that time. He's the one who showed where in the highway he saw this truck. So now the video is out. So behind Gage's truck, like 12:33 a.m., the state trooper pulls up. Now in the video, you can see Gage comes up from the woods on a slope. And he's coming to the state trooper. So I want you to take note of all this. There's a guy that's walking to the state trooper, and he's having a conversation with the trooper. And then he goes back into the car.
And was there any reason that the state trooper would be suspicious of him or any activity or reason for him to pull him over or arrest him or anything like that?
His car was there with flashers on. So he thought maybe he needed some assistance. So that's why he pulled behind the car. And Gage's car was running. So then the story Gage told the state trooper that is his first lie to the police. He said he was driving home after a party and he saw a black man walking on the street. Black man is Praveen, So he asked that man if he needed a ride and he got into the car and that black man tried to rob him and they had a fight and the black man opened the door and ran into woods. That was his story.
Wow.
So the state
officer
trooper
believed that?
Yes. The officer asked him if he wanted to make a report, whether he was hurt, and he said no problem. He didn't want to make a report. So the officer told him to go home, and he did not make a report. So if that officer thought this black man's life is a little bit something, it's minus degree there. Yeah. It's February 14th, minus degree there. And he's saying this man had an altercation and ran into the woods. Common sense tells you somebody has to look for that person. So I believe just because he heard it's a black man, all right, no problem. So nobody knew about this. The police did not make, the state trooper did not make a police report. So there was nothing. So then like that February 17th is when the state trooper shows the Carbondale police where he saw the truck. And then that night, the police went and interviewed Gage. So he lives in a different town. And he tells them another story. He said he was coming out of the party and Praveen went and asked him for a ride. That is the biggest lie you can ever hear. Praveen is not going to ask anybody for a ride at 11:30 at night. He walked everywhere. So, and he said they got into the car and Praveen was so drunk, he didn't know where he lived. So they drove around, and then they started an argument, and Praveen did not know where he lived. So that is Gage's story to the police. To the state trooper, it's a black man. To the police, Praveen was a drunk man. And he said on the way there, the common denominator here is that Highway 13 where he stopped the car. So he said they had an argument there, and Praveen punched him, and they had a fight, and he ran into woods. That was his story. So the next day, the police goes in, but they did not tell us. The college dean comes up to our office, to the hotel room, and said the police had a lead, and they are following up on it. But she didn't tell us what was happening. The police did not tell us what was happening. So maybe an hour or so later, the dean got a phone call, and she went down and came up with the police chief, deputy police chief, we never saw the police chief there, never. He never showed his face to us. The deputy police chief came, and he broke the news to us that they found Praveen from the hotel. We were staying in a hotel, and he was found 400 yards deep into the woods from there.
From the hotel?
From the hotel.
Wow.
So, and I said, what happened? So they already made up this theory that Praveen was drunk and got into a fight and, ran into woods. And they put that picture in everyone's head that we all believed. Even I believed, he was at a college party. I don't know what's happening in a party. So right after the deputy police chief left, maybe like an hour or so later, the few other police officers and the police chaplain and the coroner, they all come into the hotel. And they said they were going to start the process. I said, when can I see my son? And they said, in the coroner, this is exactly the coroner told me. He's like, no, you cannot see him. You have to wait till a funeral home of your choice brings him to Chicago, and then you can see him. I lost it. I think that's when something told me here, you need to wake up. You need to wake up, Mom. This is not right. I said, no. I said, we all are in medical field. I know how a body is identified. I said, you are not going to put somebody in the casket and bring him over to Chicago. And I said, I don't want to open it and see someone else in there. No, that's not the way. And then he goes, that's a protocol here. I said, what protocol? There's only one protocol to identify a body. A family has to identify that person, So I started screaming, and my husband was squeezing my hand. He's like, don't say anything, don't say anything, and then so many of our church members were there. They all were like, why are you saying this? This is not the way, So then he got so mad. They all went into the hallway, and the chaplain was sitting by me. He's like, I am so sorry. They are trying to work out something. Even if you don't see him here, it's okay. You can. And I said, no. I said, my accent is bad. My English is broken, but I am going to talk. That something opened my mouth that day. I used to be so quiet. I was never a public person, but now nobody can shut me up. That opened my mouth, and then they came in and they're like, we have to find something. And he said, so we asked him, when is the autopsy? And he goes, I don't know. We have to find a pathologist. I said, where is he coming from? He said, Indiana. I said, that's not the other end of the world. Said, we will pay the airfare. Bring that man over here and get the autopsy done. Said, I don't want my son to be here for an extra second. We are taking him home. So then all of a sudden he made few phone calls and everything. And I think they probably realized that we were not going to take a no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, you can come to the hospital, we'll show you. You can see him. By the time initially they said only the parents. And then my daughter started screaming, they were like really out of it. So they said, okay, just the family. So by the time we got to the hospital, the chapel was filled with a lot of Malayalis, everybody was there. And then this coroner comes and he goes, oh, you all want to see him? Come on. Everybody in. So they had him in a GI lab, propped him up and on a stretcher. And we were only allowed to see him probably like 15 feet away. I saw the bruise on his right face. As I walked in, I saw the bruise. I said, who beat my kid? And then, nobody answered. And my brother-in-law asked the same thing. What is on his forehead? And one of the officers said, oh, he was found face down. That's frostbite. The next day, they tell us he was on his back. So, like so many inconsistencies. So I think they had him covered up to the neck. So we were only able to see the right side of the face. And, we didn't have any answers. They did the autopsy. That evening, we met with the police team. And they told us the story again that Praveen was drunk. He asked him for a ride and got into the car and, had an altercation, ran into woods. And I said, do you have that guy in custody? They said, no. I said, why? And he goes, we have nothing, no reason to suspect him. And I said, he was the last person to see my son alive. What do you know what he did to my son? They said, there is nothing. So they gave Praveen's wallet and the keys to us. They kept his jeans and his clothes and his computer and all that. And they sent, and then that next morning, the coroner called me after the autopsy and he said, no injury, hypothermia is the cause of death.
Wow.
So we come here. The next day we go to the funeral home here. Thank God for the funeral home director. He went to see Praveen and he comes back into the office and he's like, lovely, you're a nurse, right? I said, yes. And he goes, honey, you need to see him. This is not a frostbitten body. Your son has injuries. My husband said, I don't want to see him. I said, no, we have to. I dragged him in there. My goodness, head to toe, my son was beaten up. He had dents in here, dents. So we asked for a second autopsy. We found a doctor. His funeral was a little bit late, but the doctor was able to do the autopsy. Guess what? Blunt force trauma to the head.
Wow.
With 22 injuries on him. What do you say for that? And even with that, and Praveen's toxicology came back negative. Both autopsies, he had no drugs, no alcohol in him. From there and from here. The case, nobody was saying anything. They wouldn't give us any reports, nothing. And I tried to talk to the state's attorney down there. He called me all kinds of names. He said, this is a mom that cannot deal with her son's death. And I had a personal conversation with him and he told me I need to be educated.
Wow.
Yeah. So, he said, you thought you had a model son, but he was not the model son you thought you had. He was involved in many illegal activities. I said, what illegal activities? Then I'm thinking, he's not even giving me a report. What is he finding? Then I'm thinking maybe he has him on video doing something. But a year later, with the negative toxicology in his hand, he put out a 10-page report saying Praveen was drunk 10 times in the report. Everything Gage Bethune was, he reversed the role and put Praveen in that spot. And he tried everything to save Gage Bethune. So after that, I mean, that report really, literally, like I told you about Monica Zukas, she was with me the
You
whole
were
time.
mentioning earlier that there was a woman, another fellow mom in the town where he went to college, who really took interest in your case. And you described her almost as like your twin sister or something, except she's white.
Yes.
What role did this white mother play in helping you?
She is my right hand, even till today. There is not a single day that we don't talk. She got interested. One of our community member approached her when Praveen was missing, because she was already doing talk shows about the police corruption and, like the cases that the police wasn't doing a good job on. So she was already looking into this, and then this happens. So initially she was not interested. She didn't want to look into it, but the guy from our community, he approached her, and the more she knew about this, she knew something was wrong. So on the way back here, she tried to call us. We hung up on her in the beginning, but she did not give up. She did shows on Praveen. And when I listened to the show, somebody from our church said, you need to listen to this. So this was a day after Praveen's wake. And the questions she was asking in the show, I'm like, my God, there is another mother asking the same questions that I have. But even then, everybody here was telling me, don't talk to Monica. She's a TV person, she's there for popularity. Don't talk to anybody. So, like, what do I know? I was like so scared. But then as days went by, I'm like, I need to talk to somebody. So one day, accidentally, she was calling my daughter, but my daughter was on the street. She couldn't hear her. So she's like, Mommy, call Monica. She wants to ask you something. So I called her. That's the first time we talked. And then, even before that, when my daughter talked to her, she told her, grieve your brother later, act now.
Wow, that is powerful to say, to grieve to someone later, but you need to act now. When I hear this case and the things that happened, I know you're a woman of great faith and your faith is important to you. When the things that happened, the offering the reward money early on that got the cousin to turn it in, demanding to see the body, listening to the funeral home director, getting a second autopsy, and then what advice would you give to people? It doesn't have to be Malayali, but nobody ever expects to find their son dead or in this situation. And the authorities and law enforcement who you believe would act justly, you feel, correct me if I'm wrong, completely let you and your family down.
Yes, they did. But we saw the best, good and bad in the system. The same police officers who were shut down by the state's attorney, the case went to a special prosecutor later on, a year later. The special prosecutor used the same police officers and they investigated the case. They brought all the evidence to the special prosecutor. They charged Gage Bethune for first-degree felony murder, took the case to a trial, a 2-week trial. After a 2-week trial, a jury of 12 people, 11 white, 1 black jury, found Gage Bethune guilty of first-degree murder. 3 months he spent in jail.
Wow.
He was waiting for sentencing. The 3 months he was in jail, he was dealing drugs from jail. The judge did not care. The day of sentencing, we don't know, for whatever reasons, the judge came prepared. He brought all these things prepared. We were sitting there with our victim's impact statement to tell him, how much we miss our son. And I even wrote that I forgive you in that,
Wow.
The judge read it. So the judge comes in, Gage Bethune comes in from jail in street clothes with no handcuffs, no jail suit. And I'm wondering, why is he coming like this? So I asked the prosecutor and he's like, I don't know, we have to find out. The judge was in a hurry. He started talking. He's like, there was no prosecutorial error. The jury had enough evidence to find him guilty. But one word in the indictment that said knowingly came after a comma. He's not even sure whether that jury was confused by that. The same judge read this indictment, I don't know how many times in the court. He didn't realize that. He said he's setting the jury verdict aside, he's letting him go, and ordered a new trial.
Wow, he ordered a new trial. But before you get to that trial, when you look at this case, from the bottom of your heart, do you believe racism was at play here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did not mention race in my son's case from the beginning, because I knew every time you say something, they all say, oh, you know, that person is bringing up race.
Mm-hmm.
It was always in the back of my mind. But, you know, every time you know, how can a state's attorney tell me that I need to be educated? Does he even know, you know,
Yeah.
I came here with a degree. I came to this country with a degree. You know, so there were so many things that I was seeing that I knew that, you know, like it's there. But I thought, okay, I am polite. I don't scream at anybody. That's why I went in person, you know, to the state's attorney. I thought maybe if he see me, he will know that I'm not a scary looking person, you know. But he didn't care. He just did not care. So, you know, like,
I'm sorry, what ultimately happened in this case where the man that was convicted of Praveen's murder, where is he now and what happened? Do you believe at the end of this you got justice?
I believe we got justice. You know, my intention was not to put Gage Bethune behind bars for the rest of his life. He was supposed to get 20 to 60 years in prison, mandatory. My intention was to let the world know who Praveen was, and he did not cause his death. And I wanted to bring the person who was responsible for his death in front of a jury. So all my wishes, he took the stand, he took the witness stand, and the prosecutor grilled him for 4 hours. And we heard from his own mouth that he hit Praveen and he did not know Praveen. I needed to hear that, you know, because there were stories out there that Praveen was friends with him. I knew he wasn't. He said it was a total stranger. And he said, I hit him here. See, during the police interrogation, he told the police that he didn't know what that guy was capable of, that kid. That's what he you know, he was my son's age too.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what he was capable of. I'm not that race, and I'm not used to being around that kind of population. He's
Mm-hmm.
telling this to a police officer, and the police officer totally believed him.
And ultimately, Auntie, what happened in the case? Can you just fast forward and tell us ultimately how this was resolved at the end? What happened to Gabe?
Gage Bethune is walking free now, but he could be charged anytime. You know, there is no limit. He can be charged anytime. You know, so he's walking free, and the judge ordered a second trial.
And you do believe that second trial will happen?
I don't know. We had told the prosecutor that we don't want to see another trial, because, you know, it's not easy to sit through a trial. You know, like the defense is attacking him. I mean, the defense even called him an ISIS because they found a poster. Praveen was a criminal justice major. He was working on terrorism. So they found a poster in his room, and the defense attorney said Praveen was ISIS and he was recruiting people. You know, those kind of things, I don't want to hear anymore. I don't want to see any more of his autopsy pictures, you know. So, but the prosecutors will have to work, you know. They said, you know, the thing that you're telling us, you have that peace that you got justice, it makes us feel good. But there is, in their eye, there is a felon out there, you know, a convicted felon out there. Who knows what he's going to do to the community again. So
it's a good point.
They are working on it. I don't know what is happening now or when it's going to happen, but I believe the special prosecutor that we have on this case, that's another blessing. Like Monica Zukas, David Robinson is another blessing for us. There is not a lawyer in this country that knows about this case more than him. and he is very ethical, very professional. He did his job, and I am so thankful to him. So, he gave us peace. He investigated the case thoroughly. He did not let a single stone unturned.
Auntie, at the beginning of this conversation, when we started, you gave a lot of credit to the younger Malayali generation who has been so vocal,
Yes,
so adamant about supporting Black Lives Matter. And the truth is, as dark as our skin colors may be in the Malayali community, there is a little bit of racism towards the Black community, particularly of a certain generation. Why is it that you, coming from the older generation, feel so strongly that we need to support Black Lives Matter in this moment, particularly the Malayali community?
because of my experience, what I went through for the past 6 years, I saw it. I became a nurse. I mean, I came here with a nursing degree and I started working here 30 years ago. You see racism in your profession, but I think we all have learned to put a blind eye to it or just laugh it off when you hear things, and as Malayalis, we suppress everything because we want to be good in everyone's eyes, but what I have learned in the past 6 years, no matter how educated you are, how polite you are, when it comes to things like this, only thing that matters is your skin. That's all it matters. So when this group was created, in the past few weeks, with all these murders, and when I heard George Floyd's, that doctor came up and said, there is the cause of death is, all those things brought me so many memories back. And I was sitting here and crying every single day. I just could not take it, because I was
crying as you were hearing the details of George Floyd.
And I told Monica, I said, Monica, look what they are saying, the same thing that we heard. Is initially when Praveen's, the police chief went on air and said there is no apparent injury, like 2 hours after he was found, even before an autopsy, they made all these conclusions, so that really made me feel like this thing and I'm like, if any one of us Malayalis think that it's not going to happen to one of us anymore, they are so wrong. They are so wrong. And even in our community, I know there are so many people who think that it always happens to somebody else.
Yeah.
Always somebody else. And if it didn't happen to me, I probably wouldn't be talking like this now, because we all live in a bubble and we are very comfortable in it. And as my age, my generation, we all want the kids to do so good. We want our kids to be friends with a certain kind of people. My son, my Praveen, went out of it. He had friends from all over. So I think seeing that after Praveen was gone, I think seeing how my son lived his life and what he was studying to make a change in the criminal justice system. I'm so drawn into this. And when I saw Nisha starting this group, I'm like, good for you. Good for you. You have all my support. And we restrict our children. Don't do that. Don't do this. Even I have to tell you, with the Praveen's incident, we had a lot of support from our community. But guess what? 90% of them were adults. We didn't have the younger generation with me. And I always wondered, where is the youth? Where is the youth?
It was interesting. You told me just before we had started the Facebook Live, you said, because everybody in our family is in the medical profession, nobody was criminal justice. Nobody had that background. So I had to Google, what is a plaintiff? What is a defendant? I didn't know these basic terms. And now you're saying, the great irony was that even before this horrible incident happened, Praveen was on the path of understanding and learning criminal justice. And in the end, in the United States of America, even if you murder somebody, you have a right to due process. You have a right to be represented by an attorney and have a jury of your peers hear your case and to hear you say today, it's remarkable to me that you do feel like justice was served and you understand that there might be a retrial, but you're okay if that doesn't happen.
Yes, I'm okay with that. You know, Monica and I, we always talk about this. If Gage was sentenced that day, went to jail, 20 was minimum. He had to serve every single day. Everything would have been shut up. Maybe the media would talk for 1 or 2 days, and then if I ever said anything, they probably will say, oh, that mom, she fought, she got justice. What is she talking about now? But what the judge did was a slap on the face of our criminal justice system, on the jury that spent 12, this was not an easy trial. This was an emotional trial, a slap on that jury's trial. See, Gage Bethune's family, they harassed the jury foreman. There was a case filed. The judge did not care. So, like when the judge did this, I'm like, this is what we were talking about from the beginning, so now that is coming out. Everything they tried to cover up, every corruption they did, like the walls in Carbondale is tumbling down. So there is the current state's attorney is in power for so many years. He does not do any good for the minority, or it's about who you know or how influential you are. There are a couple other white people's case also that he just did such a damage to the case. But it's because the other side knew so many higher authority, So now for this election, there is a person running against him.
Wow.
That is the change that I'm looking for.
So is that where you're putting your efforts to, is pushing for, and tell me a little bit more about that, because you're engaging in the political process here and the power of the vote. What are you doing to help his counterpart, his rival, so that they can win?
We met with him, he's from another town. He's from the town where Monica lives. And he was just hearing about all this last year. So I think he started to listen. And then he approached me. He wanted to talk to me about my experience with the current state's attorney. And I wasn't shy. I was very open about it, because his name is Michael Carr. Every time I said something about him, he would do a press release. Why would you do that? I mean, I'm just a mother, you are a public official. I'm paying your tax, your salary with my tax money. So this a person who is running against him, his name is Joe Cervantes, and I'm like rooting for him. And I honestly hope he wins. He has plans. One of his plan is one example that, all these, there are so many kids are there that go into jail for drugs there. That is a big thing in Carbondale.
Uh-huh.
So they serve their time, they come out, they do another offense, they are right back in. So there is no rehabilitation for that person who was already, so that person comes out, there's nobody to guide them, nothing happens, they do something else, maybe a traffic violation or something, they go right back. On the other hand, Gage Bethune, dealing drugs from jail, he does all these kinds of things. He stole something while he was on parole. Nothing happened, So Joe, this new guy that's running against Michael Carr, his wish is like social justice, like how to rehabilitate these people who are coming out of jail. Some plans to make the community safe.
So you're saying, convicting them is not enough. You're saying there has to be some sort of a plan once they're released, yes, so this doesn't keep happening.
Right. I mean, there's no other way. It's like a circle. It's like a circle. This person comes out, they can't find a job because they are already a felon. So what do? They go and commit another crime and go right back. So we are missing something here.
Yeah.
Missing education is like, nothing. Nobody goes to school. It's just keep the children in school. Education. So now we have started a Praveen Memorial Scholarship over there for a criminal justice major. So every year we give $1,000 scholarship in hopes of getting these kids to stay in school.
Wow.
So every year when we go down for their memorial, we take a walk into the woods where Praveen was found. And then at the college, they have given us space to have this, the ceremony, like this award ceremony. So right now, every year we get so many applicants. It's hard to pick one student now.
Oh, wow.
So I'm happy to see that change, So looking back, I know my heart, a piece of my heart is gone when Praveen left. But he has done things I couldn't do in 100 years. So the fact that I'm talking to young Malayalis, which I never thought I would do this.
And I can't tell you how many people were so excited to hear your story. And also because I think people are looking in the younger generation to see the older generation say, good, we need to do this, move ahead, we'll walk with you. And it's not an easy struggle. I was interviewing somebody today, an African-American gentleman whose story I'm going to put out shortly on my Instagram and Facebook. He was wrongfully convicted, and ultimately there was a video that helped overturn his conviction, former NFL player. And I think a lot about this community that has really walked alone by itself for so long. And I just want to hit back on the importance of how do you believe Malayalis can best help the Black Lives Matter movement at this moment?
I think we have to be partnered with them. Like it's not only Black, any kind of minority. Any kind of minority you have to be together to make a change. Otherwise, there is no way. You have to have your voice heard. They have been suppressed for so long. Like even during the trial when we were in Carbondale, so many people, Black people, came up to me and said, "Can I give you a hug?" I said, "Sure." And they're like, "You are doing something we couldn't do." So they identify us with them, and my heart is like, we experience the same thing they are experiencing. I experienced it only because of the loss of Praveen. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. So if you don't go through something so drastic, we don't realize. That's why I said Malayalis, like even now they say, "Oh, don't do it, don't do any kind of protest." I am not for riots. I have to make it clear, I'm not for riots, but do it peacefully. Make your voice heard. Without your voice being heard, nobody is going to make a change. കരയുന്ന കുഞ്ഞിനെ പാലുള്ളൂ കേട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ?
Yeah.
You have to ask for, even if you don't cry as a child, you don't get milk.
Yeah, that was a saying you were saying in Malayalam. If you don't cry as a child, you're not going to get the milk. So you're saying you've got to make some noise to get what you want.
Yeah. So I am all for peacefully. I don't want any riots. I don't want them destroying any kind of business, doing damage to anybody else. Make your voice heard and vote. And when you vote, look at the candidate. I hate when people say, "Oh, vote Democrat, vote Republican." No, they all are in there to make themselves better. Look at the person, listen to that person, and ask questions. What are you going to do for us?
Yeah. Also in your story, just coming to sort of understand it, we talk about Black Lives Matter, but you made a point of also giving credit to those police officers who then went back and re-looked at that case and put their best foot forward.
Yes. And like the original police chief was fired. We filed the lawsuit at 3 months after Praveen was gone. And then the city fired him, saying this is not the reason but the police chief said, this is the reason I'm fired. So now we have a different chief there. He has done everything he could. Every year when we go for memorial, he emails me a couple weeks before, when are you coming? What can I do? Every single year, he comes with a couple other police officers. It's so hard to walk into the woods. He makes a bridge there for us to walk. He walks with us, stays there during the prayer. You know, like, they have become a part of us now. And he said, he has told me many times, I will do this as long as I'm the chief here. The whole trial, they were sitting behind us. That sends a message, right? And so I can only say good things about them right now. You know, they did things in the beginning because that's probably what they were used to.
Yeah.
And I told the police chief at that time, you know, when all this case was like really shut down, and I said, you think you did everything perfectly, but I can give you 101 reasons why you're wrong.
Wow. And, you know, and the other part of this story that a lot of people might not focus, but your love is just so apparent for Monica Zukis. And I mentioned her race, that she's white, because I think very often when we talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, I think police officers, people in the white community feel very sometimes isolated, and people are like, good, well, you should, but how do we all work together? Because your story and this whole situation with Praveen also showed that you can't paint a broad stroke, a broad brush for all people, that sometimes you need people in all sorts of communities to help.
Yes. You know, just don't look at the color of the person. You know, every human bleeds blood, red blood, right? You know, like, why do you look at a person and think, oh, you know, that person is a different color, maybe that person is not as good as me?
Yeah.
We have to get that off of us. And, you know, now Monica and I, when we talk, you know, she never saw an Indian person. She never had any kind of experience with Indians. When we started talking, I bridged Southern Illinois and Chicago, you know, like, in the Indian culture. She put everything out there, and she was here at my daughter's wedding. She wore a sari. You know, it's like, so it's just like getting people together. And that is the spread the love of the, you know, there is only one language in the world, love. Just spread that, you will be fine. You know, just trying to make a person hate, and you spread that hate into so many people. That's why, you know, in the victims impact statement, when I wrote, I said, I told Gage Bethune, I forgive you. I said, I don't speak for my family, I speak for myself only. I had to forgive you for me to live. I couldn't live with that anger. I couldn't. So, you know, who knows if he listens to me or not? I have said it many places publicly. If he takes it and try to become a good person, good for him. You know, but otherwise we tried everything. But you know, like I say, you just don't look at the person's skin color. Now Monica says, I only see you as lovely. I don't see you as anything else. You know, that's how people should look at.
Yeah, such great advice. You know, it's remarkable. Praveen wanted a criminal justice degree, wanted to graduate, was working through this, but ultimately, I feel like it was his mother who, in the worst of times, ended up with some sort of a criminal justice degree and is still fighting.
Yes. And I believe if Praveen became a police officer, his ultimate aim was to work with FBI. I believe he's making more changes now than he would have worked 20 years, 30 years in the criminal justice system. I believe this was his destiny.
Incredible. Before I let you go, I just want to get a sense. You talked a little bit about the election in November. I know this is a passion project for you moving forward. What will you do next? I know criminal justice is important to you. What do you hope for yourself in the future?
People ask me, are you running? I have no plans for, no, I'm a nurse and I will die as a nurse. That's my passion. But I will do anything in my power to make a change in the system. That is through supporting somebody that shares my value, for keeping the community safe and making sure the justice is served equally. There shouldn't be double standard. Justice has to be served equal. Everyone has to be treated equal. There shouldn't be double standard. Even for our children, that's what I worry about. What are they going to get? There should not be second-class citizens in this country.
Yeah.
They have the education, they have the power, they have the knowledge. They should be treated as first-class citizens, no less.
Lovely, Varughese. Lovely, Auntie. I want to thank you so much for your courage, your optimism, and for continuing to fight for justice for everyone, not just for Praveen. I want to thank you for your time. We're so grateful that you were able to share your story with us.
Thank you, Reena. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone that started this organization and for inviting me to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you.